Good morning, friends. As we close out another week, I want to take you to James chapter 1, verses 5 to 8, where we read, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways." Now, we've been talking about growing up into Christ and all that involves, according to Ephesians 4, love, faith, unity, and knowledge. And I think that James 1:5 really strikes at the core of all of that, because it speaks of the need for wisdom. Because God's wisdom teaches us how to love correctly, where to place our faith, how to maintain unity, and what to hold on to in terms of knowledge. And here, James promises us that if we lack wisdom, then we should ask God for wisdom, and God will generously grant us that wisdom. And that's a very simple sequence of events. Ask God for wisdom, He will generously give it to you. And not only that, He doesn't berate you for lacking wisdom in the first place. I just love this part, because just consider our daily experiences for a moment. How often do we not ask for help because we're afraid to let anyone know that we can't do it on our own? How often do we not ask a question because we don't want people to be aware of our current ignorance? We fear being embarrassed. We fear someone scolding us because we don't already have the answers. But we need never have that fear with God, because God already knows what we do and don't know, what we do and don't understand, whether we admit it to Him or not. And so when we do admit our ignorance, our need for help, He grants us the help we need without reproach, without criticism, without saying, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe you're asking for help with such a simple problem." No, God doesn't do that. Rather, He is pleased that we are willing to humble ourselves and trust in Him, so that we are looking to Him for the answer. Now, James does make it very clear that there's one absolutely necessary qualifier to this promise. For anyone who asks God for wisdom, they must ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. Now, this imagery of the waves of the sea being driven by the wind is quite reminiscent of Ephesians 4, where Paul wrote, "So that we may no longer be children, tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes." I think we can see the similarity not only in the illustration, but the similarity of what's being taught here. In terms of knowledge and understanding, in terms of wisdom, a child will be tossed to and fro. Their understanding is simply not such that they are well grounded and stable when it comes to wider matters and deeper matters of doctrine and teaching. And that's why Paul commands us to grow up into Christ in the knowledge of the Son of God. Because when we do that, we will no longer be driven back and forth by all those uncertainties. And when we gain some of that knowledge of God, when we gain some real maturity, then what is one of the greatest hallmarks of that? Well, a stronger and deeper faith in the power of God, so that we don't doubt. We don't doubt whether or not He's capable of doing what He's promised that He can do. And also, we gain a stronger and deeper faith that reinforces that not only is God capable of doing what He has promised, but that He will do what He's promised, because He is perfectly faithful. And so in the James 1 situation concerning wisdom, we see that the person in question may have doubts as to what to do. Of course, actually, he does or she does have doubts. That's the problem. They don't know what to do. They lack wisdom in a particular area. So in that sense, they are struggling with doubts. But where they cannot have doubts is in knowing that God is both capable and faithful to keep His promises. So when the person asks God for wisdom, they must do so with the conviction and the certain knowledge that God will grant to them what they need, and He'll do so abundantly. But if they do not approach God in this manner with that faith, then James tells us that they ought not to expect anything from the Lord. So clearly, faith is the clincher here. The point has nothing to do with the Lord's ability or His willingness. He is able, He is willing. It simply comes down to the question, do we truly believe in the power of God to direct us according to His wisdom, or do we not? And if we claim that we do, or we put it into practice? Because you can talk about the Christian faith and simply refer to faith as a designation given to the religion. God doesn't care so much for that definition of faith, I don't think. But if we actually do what we say we believe, well, that's real faith, and God blesses us with abundant wisdom when we ask Him for it with that kind of faith. And that will lead to ever-increasing maturity indeed. My friends, have a good and godly day, and Lord willing, I'll see you Sunday.